Perfect. Hi, thank you so much for joining us for the next edition of our webinar. We've tried to pick a topic. I think we already did our first 2026 webinar. So if you missed that, we will link that on our website. But we wanted to pick a topic this time that helps people in the journey that they are in the way that I know some of us have started the year on a great note, and some of us have started the year on a contemplative note, meaning we're looking at the numbers and we are thinking, hey, something's wrong and I need to fix it. Whether it's your conversion rate, whether it's your UX, whether it's the way people are behaving on your website, you're blaming it on UX, you're blaming it on the way the website looks. And as an e-commerce owner, you have something called an availability bias, which means that you look at your website every day, you look at your store every day, and it's hard to now figure out what's going wrong and where people are dropping off and why they are dropping off and so on and so forth. So um, we're going to try and give you some ideas that hopefully solve for that today. We've kind of broken them down into mistakes that people make. Some of these are really basic, and to be completely honest, it's the most basic stuff that sometimes moves the needle. So I'm going to, of course, walk you through that, and I'm happy to take questions as we go. So if you have any question about what I'm talking about, you can feel free to leave it in the chat, or you can also use the Q&A section to talk about that. We'll jump right in. I don't want to, kind of spend time talking about the topic too much more. I think there's a lot for us to cover today. So it's best that we kind of jump in straight away. Um, um, One of the key things that I feel has been happening is, and I think to some degree I am to blame for it, because in the last few webinars, I've spent a lot of time giving ideas. And so what that might have done is added a ton of things to the site. And of course, if you've been A/B testing all of them, you would know if they work or not. But if you've not been A/B testing all of them, then there is really no way to figure out if those changes are working for you or not. And so I often see sites now which are just fully loaded. They are packed with things, right? There's every possible conversion rate optimization trick or hack is already on the page. And so that's something that I feel is because a lot of us are not really testing the site in an unbiased way. And there are a lot of misconceptions that run. For example, shoppers, they just need to understand the product. They just, more social proof will automatically mean more trust. And urgency is the most important element that will create motivation or action. Whereas the reality is that um, when people understand the product, it reduces confusion, but it doesn't reduce the hesitation, right? It does not reduce the fact that they're thinking of spending the kind of money they are going to spend on a given product. Trust has a saturation point, right? When you say 100,000 people use a product and you put reviews and you put testimonials, you've established a certain level of trust, and that's it, right? So you can't take it any further from there. And beyond that point, something else has to be done to kind of get people to make a decision. Urgency works, but certainty has to be built for it to work, which means that yes, okay, this is a great deal, but I'm going to be excited about a deal only if I'm sure about the underlying thing that I'm buying, only if I'm sure about the experience that I'm going to get. And then, of course, people don't flow in a funnel. I think um, seen we've all seen. Is there an echo in my audio? I have a DM in my if someone can confirm that the audio is okay, I can keep going. um Someone from the team perhaps. Sounds good to me. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ian. Okay, perfect. So users loop, pause, backtrack, compare, reopen questions, so on and so forth. So the classic e-commerce funnel does not exist. People don't move linearly. They're not going to move from home to collections to product to cart to checkout. That's the classic direction we want them to move in. That's the underlying track that they're going to take. But there's going to be a lot of horizontal traversal before they actually do that. So to solve for all of that, let's look at a few mistakes that people generally make, right? The first one is the USP not getting enough attention. I feel one of the things that's happened is we assume that people know what we stand for. And more often than not, this is something that happens with sites that have multiple products and multiple things that they offer. For sites that offer just one product or two products, they generally make a lot of noise about what they are, what they stand for, and just the product's most key, value props. But generally saying, it's important that it shows up everywhere. So generally, what we see is a customer sees a lifetime warranty, goes into men's jackets, for example, looks at the zipper, thinks about the quality of the zipper, um, uh, but then the lifetime warranty message, which was on the homepage, is already lost on the product page. So there is no cohesiveness. It's not coming through across on the site. And so, as marketers, we end up cramming information and we assume that someone would know everything already. And so I think what we want to maybe do is repetition, a thoughtful repetition, I must say, is a very important tactic to make sure that things flow. So the one of the companies that has mastered this is if you look at Amazon product titles lately, if you've been looking at how people name their products on Amazon, it's essentially everything is written in the title itself, right? So if you're buying a laptop, it says HP laptop, one TB of space, 16 gigabytes of RAM. Everything is just in the title itself, right? So you essentially, they bring in the name of the company, the name of the product, the serial number, the specifications, the key value prop like a 2K high definition screen, and so on and so forth. So all of that is crammed into just one place, and the reason is so that it gets noticed. But the important thing is the USP, the top reason, the number one reason you exist, has to shine through everywhere. So in this case, for example, the image says perfect for babies. The name of the product says perfect for sensitive skin of all ages. It is okay to repeat. The other thing is to put it in context of the consumer. I think one of the other things we are not doing is showing our USP in relevance to how it might work for all kinds of people of all ages, of all different uses, right? So, for example, we've had this client for a while called Fire Department Coffee. I don't know if you've tried their coffee. The coffee is phenomenal, so I recommend you try them out. But with them, the brand originally started, it was started by, of course, somebody who stood for the cause. But then over a period of time, they realized that they were not talking about the coffee itself enough. And so, we helped them kind of do that, and it shows through the website now. So, I think that's a great example because we've also shown that this coffee is kind of perfect if you wanted to do an espresso versus a drip versus with any other kind of brewing that you might want to do. Basically, small, reinforcements will really, really work. Whether it is something as simple as the fact that you're manufacturing in the USA, given that that's an important thing that people care about now, and or if it is just generally what the founder of the company stands for. Hey, we always do right by our creators, or we always do right by our customers, no matter what, or we have this lifetime handshake. But then it has to be plastered across the board. It can't go missing suddenly 20-30% into the journey. Let's go to the next one. The other big mistake I see companies make is the urgency is created too early in the customer journey, and I think urgency is created in all kinds of different ways, including low stock batches, only two left in stock, or a timer maybe of some kind, or a time bound offer maybe of some kind, or somebody who's just added something to cart because they want to remember it, are getting an email saying that the cart is reserved only for 5 minutes and then it would go. So it instantly destroys the way people look at your brand when you do that, to be honest. It instantly makes people think like you're pushing too hard and you're coming across like a really bad car salesman. So that's something we have to solve for. This has happened with me more than once. Let me be honest. This has happened with us a lot, where out of nowhere a timer shows up. I, in fact, would recommend that almost all of the widgets that you are able to add from the Shopify App Store or anywhere else on the internet, don't just add them. It's extremely important that you test them because I feel it's extremely easy. We are in this business, so building an app and launching it on the Shopify App Store is not hard anymore. And if I, for example, were to create an app that runs a timer on the top of the website, And I would make claims saying, hey, this app is going to improve your checkout rate by 20%. And then suddenly 1,000 websites have installed my app. 1,000 websites now have timers on them. And the problem with that is that those websites and the people shopping on those sites don't even need a timer, right? Because they're selling something that doesn't require that kind of blatant urgency that might be that might be needed. So how do we solve for that? How do we make sure that we solve for it? The point is that urgency will only matter if there is confidence, and confidence will only happen if there is differentiation, if there's hierarchy, reassurance, if there's those words, those are the emotions kind of what are flowing into the customers, into the client's brain at that point in time. And how you solve for that is let the information cadence on your side. So for example, for you, if you're selling, let's just take the example of, in this case, for example, it's salmon oil for dogs, right? Pooch and Mutt, that's one of the products that sells the most. So if they're selling salmon oil for dogs, or supplements for dogs, one of the key things they want to do is cadence the information. So they're going to start with, hey, why Pooch and Mutt makes sense? What are the great things you can get for your dog? And then why salmon oil is amazing, and then go into convincing people that there are like 20,000 dogs that have salmon oil every day, pictures of how their paws are getting better, their nose is nicer, better, their coat is amazing, etc. And then you go into saying, hey, you know what, we'll throw something in. If you buy it today, we're going to make sure it gets shipped on priority to you. So something subtle, unless of course if you're running like a really big deal sort of site, where you have to kind of push people. I don't think that timers work well. We have A/B tested timers for our clients more than 100 times, I think in the last year alone. And I recommend, if you do away with it from your website, I don't think your conversion rate would change even a little bit. The other thing is that the urgency should be created after a micro commitment has already been made, right? So, for example, maybe a size was picked, or maybe something else was done. Um, what that does for you is it brings attention to what should get attention. The simplest example I can give you for that is, if someone picks a size, if you see it says only 6 units left, and it should also say below that, ideally, you can return it if you don't like it, no questions asked after 30 days. It should not just keep showing up there. It's when you pick a size, it should show that information. So you're doing two things. You're saying, hey, you know what? There are only 6 left, and I know I'm asking you to make a decision here. You can always send it back if it doesn't fit you. Okay. And so what you're doing there is, you are only promising, or pushing someone who is right there, right? They're picking a size. Picking a size is a big commitment, right? Picking a size as well as a color. So that's a micro commitment, and that's the perfect candidate to create some urgency. The next one that I want to talk about is overuse of social proof. I feel we've kind of gone overboard. Too many layers of social proof, of course. The first question, of course, is how much of it can be really trusted? 300,000 people use the product, only good reviews. I think we all know what's happening with user-generated content in now that AI is available to us. So almost, I think more than half of the user-generated content that I'm seeing is not real. It's AI, and so it's going to be even harder for real social proof to shine because of that. And so the way to solve for it is to help people kind of get some genuine information on social proof. And the problem is that with user-generated content and reviews, etc., you are outsourcing persuasion. You are essentially saying, hey, I'm not saying it, the other guy is saying it. Whereas I feel that what's getting lost in that is the brand is not convincing people about the brand enough. And I feel that this happens more often. I just want you to take a step back on your own website and tell me how many of, just think to yourself, how many of you have a founder's note on your website, for example, right? A brand's voice saying, hey, here is our promise, or here's why we what we are and who we stand for. It's very rare that you would see that as a matter of fact. But and I feel that customers really appreciate that. Customers really see through when you are trying to make a promise, and that's also why really well done fashion ads are doing extremely well on Instagram. Anybody who's doing fashion related D2C ads right now, which are well shot, where you can show the thickness of the fabric and the stitching quality and all of those things, those ads are doing ridiculously well these days because people are getting to hear directly from the brand. If those same ads were, hey, I got this, set of PJs and it's phenomenal and they're really nice, look at how I look, they instantly know that this person was paid to say this, and it's probably not true. And so the way to solve for it is to slowly kind of go there. The first thing is also skim through all of the social proof you already have. So, you have to surface social proof and testimonials that are solving for specific benefits first. So your ICP, your ideal customer profile, has 2 or 3 key reasons they buy from you, and you have to make sure that those benefits are. This is for example a plant shopping store, and so the one that had that this is a review that was buried on their website, and it says delivery of plant in good condition with instructions for its care, would recommend Bloomscape, right? So very simple. But when you're buying a plant, probably the number one concern you have is the condition that it's going to reach you in. And Bloomscape does this really nice packaging that it doesn't get destroyed completely. And they also do fast shipping, so it doesn't die on the way. And this kind of shined through. And so we made an entire section out of it that shows how the product is packed, and also a couple of testimonials from customers. So the social proof pointed exactly at one problem and did a fantastic job of completely destroying. So we knew people had that concern. We fronted it. We made sure that we answered that question in the second or third word, and done. That problem completely disappeared for the company. Also, pick the best reviews and turn them into benefits. I feel that some of the best features and benefits sections that I have done on any client site have actually come from clients saying those things about the product, right? So, like in this case, for example, the fact that something's perfect for someone became an entire section, right? And so that kind of obviously works through really well. And of course, design it well, put it together in a more presentable way, and so on and so forth. The other thing is, of course, not building the trust haphazardly. For example, jumping into, like I already mentioned, 100 plus customers tried this recently and so on. Trust signals not being tied to real shopper fears also don't work. As a matter of fact, I have a small challenge for you all. If you have a A/B testing tool that you already use, great. If you don't, I'm happy to help you with that. But try an A/B test instead of adding things. Try A/B testing, removing things from your store. Okay, one by one. Of course, don't remove the critical stuff. But over a period of time, you would have added like tons of things. Try removing a few, and don't do a before and after because it doesn't make sense. Don't remove things and then watch the numbers after you've removed them, because everything kind of changes, and so on and so forth. But the bottom line point is, we've added so many of these statements to our site in order to create trust that I don't think it gets us anywhere after a certain point. So that's another big one, I would say. Just generally speaking, trust, it takes a long time to actually reflect on the conversion number. And by far, the most important question that you have to, there are 4 real questions that you have to answer. The first one is, can I trust the brand? The second is, can I trust the product and its quality? And the third one is, can I trust the price? Which means, is this a good price for this product, right? Am I paying what it's worth? Am I overpaying? Am I underpaying? They're not saying it in these many words, but those are the 3 wide things, right? Brand, product, and quality, and price. So those are the 3 key things. And so if any of those 3 things are missing, like you have a great product that looks great, great images, great price, you're always thinking, okay, but I don't know what the broad brand this is, who makes this, do they make it in China? Is going to be one of those really rip-offs type of deals, or the. But if you have a great brand and if you have a great price, you're thinking, okay, maybe the product is just branded well, but it might just be bad. And if you know that it's a great brand and it's a great product, but the price is really off, it's really high, or if it's really low, it makes you think again. So anxiety generally originates from there, and trust has to go and address that. Generally speaking, strong trust signals placed close to wherever the price is or in the cart or in the checkout can never go wrong. And so it's important that you place it in a way that it's easy to absorb, like the one that I showed you earlier, where you pick a size and you're able to see that you can return the item. Um, or if when they add something to cart, you're like, hey, you're joining 50,000 plus Americans that use our product, for example, right? Showing it there instead of like plastered on the homepage and on the product page, etc., the impact it would have would be 100x, because you've just improved the experience, the reinforced kind of the value prop to someone who was adding to cart. And so your add to cart rate will remain the same, but the journey from there on out will naturally get better. This is a big one. And once again, if you have any questions or thoughts that you want to put together or put in the chat on the Q&A section, I'm happy to take them. But let's kind of jump in quickly. So the thing is that more and more we've emphasized on designing websites for mobile. In fact, for our clients, we spend a lot of time coming up with mobile experiments before we come up with desktop experiments. And the challenge with that is increasingly mobile sites have become, or the designs have become suitable for scanners and not deciders. Now, what does that mean? Generally speaking, mobile sites have easy to absorb information, shorter copy, and no long copy. Maybe some effects here and there to keep them scrolling so that they can absorb more information. And what that has done is a lot of designing is actually gone towards skimming information. And so the problem is that skimming will never result in committing. They will not commit. Whereas the people who want to really decide are seeing information which is well designed, but it's not going to help them make their decision. And so what we recommend you do is look at your product page and separate the information that is good for someone you're trying to impress versus good for someone who's trying to purchase. And you will instantly see the difference. You will see that fantastic imagery that says, and something amazing about the design of your product is great if you want to impress someone. But if for someone who's looking to decide, they're on the second level, third level of information. They're trying to understand dimensions, the weight, the specifications. They're trying to understand finer details about the product. So it's important to get some decision anchors in place, right? Or get people to the next step somehow. So in this case, for example, we are talking about the benefit, right? 100% of the people experience decrease in blemishes and reduction in redness in after 1 hour, right? So they're trying to sell a kind of a spray. Tag reviews internally based on context and feature, right? With context says radio button. So this is another very interesting one. Again, you're tapping into the mountain of content your customers are creating for you and using it to your advantage. But again, my limited point is that when somebody is trying to decide, they are already at second or third level information. Your mobile and desktop sites need to provide for that, so that we don't design for people who are just skimming, who are just scrolling through and they're not going to buy. They're just learning. They are also good customers. They're also clients. They're also people you should try and persuade. But maybe it's not going to happen in that visit. And so you should try and deprioritize just trying to impress people with the design, right? Flattening all benefits into a single layer is another mistake that I see people make. Very simply put, there's a long list of benefits, lots of logos, etc., or maybe a lot of copy that's written to describe the product, which is great for SEO, but I think we all know that it might not also work. But generally speaking, just saying that something is feather light is not enough, right? Because I think it's you to understand that the customer is in a position of lower trust at that point. So you have to justify the benefit. B, you have to make sure that you emphasize the ones that are important, emphasize the benefits that stand out, because I generally see those grids with like 12 icons and all of so. And I think we have a picture of something like that here. I think it's in the next one. I'll show it to you. But you have to make sure that the top two or three most key benefits instantly stand out and they're justifiable, right? So in this case, for example, the primary benefit here is that, with a step-through frame for everyday ease, it's comfort, versatility, and performance all in one. So what's the primary benefit? The frame design makes it easy for everyone in the family to use this. Okay. And that's the primary benefit. Instantly delivered, no confusion. What Now this is another example, introducing the benefits one by one. So you've got what sets our packets apart are 100% plant-based, right? So what does it say? Our vitamin D3 source, we're deriving it from lichen, whereas other competitors are often animal derived or synthetic. So you see how they've taken the time here to justify the benefit, to give it depth, and that's when it becomes convincing. If only these logos were sitting, versus if this section, the lower section was not even there, it would be extremely different from how you're processing it at the moment. So the bottom line idea is, instead of saying clinically proven, you need to say clinically proven, tested on 1200 plus users in an independent trial, and then also attach the certificate of the trial, if that's what it takes, right? Pre-purchase ownership feeling. This is the hardest to do, actually, because I think, although I would say that it was harder 5 years ago than it is today, because product imagery, quality of media that is available to make people feel like they can see and feel their product is much better. But instead of doing things that are pushy, like I've already mentioned, um, you have to make sure that the shopper feels invested into the process. And I don't mean by kind of making them do something, but you have to make sure that the ownership feeling kind of happens. The things that you could do to fix that is, of course, setting up some micro commitments. I think furniture sites, any kind of customization or custom products, any of those kind of businesses make it very easy to make this happen, because you would see your own design on a product, or you would see your own, configuration of a product. But if your product type cannot do that, I think being a brand that is more inclusive goes a long way. For example, I really dislike when I see t-shirt sites talking about the fantastic fitting t-shirts, and the only thing on the site is a ripped 6'5" stud who's wearing that t-shirt, and of course the t-shirt is going to fit him well. Anything will fit him well, right? Whereas most of us are not shaped that way. And so, not that I want the site to kind of unnecessarily add, all kinds of imagery, but I think the point is the ownership experience has to shine through. People have to feel like they can already feel or believe what you're trying to tell them, and that's not going to happen till either they invest in it themselves, meaning they've configured the product or kind of done that, or you've made them feel included in the process of whatever they've kind of put through. So for personal care as a segment, for example, if we have, I know we have a few people attending from personal care as a segment, but for personal care, just for example, I generally say you need to do a quiz or a wizard of sorts, which makes people feel like they achieved finding the product as a function of their own preferences. This is the UX for it. But of course, the answers would be, hey, so what are you trying to solve for? I have hair fall. Okay, does your hair fall after a hot shower, cold shower, all types of showers, all types of showers? Okay. Do you use a shampoo and a conditioner once a week, twice a week, or thrice a week? I use it once a week. Okay. How old are you? I'm between 30 and 40 years old. What is it that what kind of product have been using? Do you know if your shampoo has parabens and sulfates? No, it does not have sulfates. Great. And then you just take them to the product that makes sense. Basis what you told me, here's the perfect fit for you. And also get their name. So the first line will say, Shekhar, depending on what you told me, this is what's going to fix your hair fall in the next 60 days, right? And then you see the product. So it would go a long way, if that is how you would kind of serve the product to the customer. The ownership experience is extremely clear and it's extremely straightforward, right? Let's go to the next one. Breaking narrative continuity. Yeah. So again, I think this connects to the first point that I made, that something's communicated very loudly on the homepage, but it does not come through clearly at all anywhere else, or something is communicated very loudly on the product page, but it's not communicated clearly at all anywhere else. So you've got to kind of connect that. Martin sees a primary benefit on the product, on the PLP. Ron sees three different pricing and other narratives, across homepage, PLP, and PDP. Svetlana fears dissonance when checkout page looks totally separate, and so on and so on. I think basically eliminating dissonance from the experience. I can show you a couple of examples for what might click. In this case, for example, you have to make sure that there is a reason why people decided what they decided. For example, the quiz that I just showed everybody here, if they've gone through that quiz and they picked the primary problem as hair fall, when they add the product to the cart, and when they go to the checkout, or when they're looking at it on the product page, it has to say hair fall reduction literally everywhere. You cannot take them from all of that quiz to a 9.1 professional shampoo, which says no, and it says cleanse, rejuvenate, and strengthen. It doesn't say hair fall reduction in so and so number of days, etc., etc., etc. I hope I'm making sense. So in this case, the example is that it's for all hair types. If that was the decision factor, we have to carry it throughout the experience, because you can't drop that, right? So remember that. Think of it this way: you went to the mall, you wanted to buy a black t-shirt to go with the blue jeans, and you picked the black t-shirt because it had a logo here of a nice brand. Let's just say it was a Levi t-shirt, so let's keep it simple. And you picked the one because it had gunmetal gray logo here, right? So that's you liked that it had like a nice thing on the chest here. Imagine if you stopped seeing that after you reached checkout for some reason, and you completely forgot why you even picked that t-shirt. So cohesiveness is extremely important. That applies to all the labels, the nudges that you would give people, and so on and so forth. In this case, for example, Peach gives you a free mug when you subscribe. So if that's the decision factor, you have to carry it. So it can't be that I subscribe and then the checkout does not show that free mug added to the cart. And it should be a mind-blowing mug. If you're doing something like that, it has to be amazing, right? So that's what we mean by kind of connecting everything together, not having dissonance, so to say. Mistake 9, we often optimize pages instead of mental states. And what should I say? Very simply put, this is very similar to what I had said before. When you look at data points for optimizing PDPs, especially, and running A/B tests in a silo in small bits, A/B tests in segments might be successful, but what they do for your overall experience is probably the most important thing that you have to evaluate. So how do you evaluate that is user testing. You could actually sign up on usertesting.com, or you could ask us to do it. We are happy to do a free audit of your site. We also do user testing within it, where we send the site to people in the team that might not know your brand, and they would also give feedback and kind of run a survey. But the bottom line point here is that you need to have someone who's not looked at your site look at it with some kind of UX experience and then give you feedback. So usertesting.com, for example, does that really well. The first thing is make sure that people are ready to help you or ready to give you the time, right? You have to prime the mental state of the customer. So if you are a very transactional product, and people are just going to compare price and look at the product and leave, then doing long, excessive product description pages does not make any sense. But if you're a product where people are going to take a step back, take a look at what you're offering, and then kind of go from there, it would naturally take a lot of time, right? And so you've got to make sure that the mental state is primed. Uh, this is I've already spoken about this. This is that image that I was referencing earlier, but I couldn't find, which is that you have to front the objections. And instead of doing a long description, just highlight bits in the description that make sense. Um, an A/B test that a friend of mine did recently, which was genius, by the way, is in the size guide. They had all the sizes, and it said a simple copy which said, "See if it fits you," or "Not sure about the fitting." If you hovered on that, it basically opened kind of a pop-up, which we did, and it had, I think, about 30, 40, 50 pictures of actual customers wearing the t-shirt, the clothing, and of different shapes and sizes. We had tall people, we had, people who were chubby, and all different kinds of people, of course. And most interestingly, the title on the top just said 99% of our shoppers, 99.7% of our shoppers don't return our products because they fit them so well. That's it. Right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is for the size guide for shoes, another store, for them, they said, hey, if you wear a Nike 11, UK 11, pick a UK 11.5 for us, or a US 12.5 for us. So they were comparing their sizes to Nikes and saying, hey, this is the small delta that's there. So it instantly created certainty and relevance. So, but my point is that you have to front it. You have to, if you have a problem, address it head on, instead of having people think about it. Like in this case, lightweight, 16-inch laptop pocket, interior, exterior pockets, etc. So what are the top few things that really kind of make sense? Chat is very, very underrated. This is the perfect example of how chat should be done. Instead of doing chat such that you are um, just asking people to ask you questions, you should auto trigger the chat with key questions or FAQs. As a matter of fact, let me tell you, and we have seen this data several times, people who come to your site, people who come to a site and convert versus people who come to your site and at some point land up on the FAQ page and then convert, are very different. Meaning, people who visit the FAQ page convert an average of 15 times higher than people who don't. There's a huge delta between those two things, right? 15 times. So you can imagine that people who have FAQs, so, and then of course there are people who have questions, but they're not even asking those questions. They're not even visiting the FAQ section. So how are you going to tap into those curiosities? It's by auto triggering a chat that is going to throw questions at them, which you think are questions they might have when they're looking at a product, right? Ignoring decision anxiety at peak intent. What does this mean? It means that there are times in the customer's journey where the intent is very high. And whenever intent is high, decision anxiety also is high. Not everybody is super decisive, right? And if that's the case, then there's a very strong chance for you to alleviate that decision anxiety. How it shows up, right? Um, is a user goes to the collections page and is trying to filter by use case, right? Outdoor, indoor as a use case, running or jogging as a use case. Paul looks at bulleted benefits but can't visualize the outcomes, right? Lightweight. What does lightweight even mean if you are not going to quantify it? You have to say it's just a 13-gram, whatever, right? Philip sees the cart summary but can't view the 90-day guarantee that made him buy, right? So where's the guarantee? I hope this is so. Why do the best intentioned stores fall into this trap? It's very simple. It's because you're optimizing for just kind of the part of the site that is visible in your laptop or computer screen. And so what you could do to solve for this is using micro copy in different places to sharpen the buyer's mindset, to emphasize on the few things that make sense. So in this case, Primus Lightweight is a barefoot trainer to embrace your natural potential in, and the Gobi Wavy is your cozy cold weather companion, so on and so forth, right? You can also add, for example, two bullets below this. Like in the first one, you could say, has arch support, machine washable, and on the right one, you could say 100% natural suede leather and the next one can be for 2-year warranty on the velcro or the. So I'm just trying to say that micro copy is what's going to get them into that mindset of looking at the stuff that you want them to look at. And then of course explicit outcome anchored benefits, like in this case, there is a lot of marketing jargon here: 85 life changing ingredients in just 2 scoops, which I am not a fan of here. I don't like that at all. But then, of course, they talk whole body wellness, energy, better sleep, weight management, immunity, gut health. So this looks like a super food. Although I would say that they should do better to prove this to me, because this is too good to be true, and it makes me feel fishy about this whole thing. Then Andrew Huberman is going to start talking about Flip 7 one day. Maybe that's when they'll convince me. But still, they're talking about features and benefits. They're anchoring them. They're showing them in the right way. It's still good. I would just say they need to prove it to me. As a customer, I want to be able to believe it. And then, of course, answer key questions. This again brings us back to the FAQ point I've already made, which is what are the top few questions that I can answer. Over optimizing for first time visitors. Please don't do the 20% off pop-up. Stop doing the pop-up. I've been very polite on these webinars too long, asking people to stop doing pop-ups in the first 10 seconds of a new visitor's journey. People visiting again and again are also seeing those pop-ups. Only I think 50%, there's only 50% accuracy that those tools have to separate new and repeat visitors. Only a really well-built platform, for example, in our case, not that I'm bragging, but we are able to very accurately track a new visitor from an old one, because we do it on the basis of cookies, of course, like everybody else, but our cookies are first-party cookies. They're not third-party cookies, and they don't expire. So as long as somebody's visited the website and they've not explicitly gone and deleted the cookies, we would know if they're a repeat visitor or not, and we would not show them that pop-up again. But that is not true for $10 tools, right? And so that's something to think about. A lot of them are free because they're using third-party cookies in some cases. So be careful about that, because I think everybody knew what happened to Criteo. Coming back, what could you do to solve for this is accelerate decisions through your hero header. So in this case, for example, a New Year sale, right? Shop kids vitamin. So you're not trying too hard. You're just trying to make them go to the next step. That's really what you're trying to do. More commitment over more explanation. So in this case, for example, personalization, jewelry, as seen in some key logos, and then you've got reviews. And then slowly have them narrow down. You could narrow them down by a quiz sort of or a wizard sort of experience, or you could narrow them down by, just by having them select the collection that they want to be in. Bad personalization is equal to no personalization, or even worse, you are showing them something irrelevant. I have seen many websites which have a recommended for you section, which show products which are completely different from what I'm actually shopping for. They are generally those default personalization blocks that are with Shopify or any of these other platforms. They don't work well, and I must say that they take away more than they add. So what we need to get right is, instead of trying to personalize for their identity, who they are, you're a man, I know you're a man shopping on my website, I'm going to show you everything. You should personalize for intent. So if, for example, they are looking at product A, just do some simple things. Don't try to make it complex. If they're trying to look for a t-shirt which is black, see if they want to buy two together and show them a different color of the same product, and help them add both to cart, right? If they're looking at a $200 product, try and cross sell like a $10, $20 add-on. That's it. Don't try to do too much that takes away a lot of their mental energy that's already going into finding the right product. Please select the most likely variant instead of confusing the user. Like in this case, 1 pack, 2 pack, 4 pack, and then this 10, 18, and 32. So you're getting $10, $9, and $8 maybe. First of all, this does not say what the per pack, it does say 8.22 per pack, 9.22. Nobody's doing this math. Nobody's going to commit to buying 4 of something for the first time that they're going to buy from you because it's $1 cheaper. So what I would simply say is, trying for the first time, I love it. And those are the 2 options. And depending on how much they love it, they can choose the number of packs that they want. So I would try this out in a few different ways, but generally speaking, you want to reorder your PDP, um, uh, so that you can address key concerns. If they've opened FAQs, you want to bring up answers that are tied to their search history, maybe. So multiple ways to address that. Premature feature comparison. Yeah, I think this is another very niche one. I don't think it applies to a lot of people, so I'm going to just run through this. But generally speaking, when you are doing comparison, it's a double-edged sword. You're also making the customer aware about what they are comparing against. So it's important that you do it in a strategic way. Also, I would say that show comparisons which are not um, claims that people can challenge, right? Like in this case, very, very simple, very, very stark and very, very simple. What they're trying to say that, the retinol content in a product can change the way it reacts on your skin. So very, very simple. Uh, Prioritizing decision speed over decision comfort. I think decision comfort is more important. 2026 is going to be the year when quality of information on your site is also going to be valued by tools like ChatGPT and Gemini. And so you have to double down on that. Also, we've learned over the last 24 hours that Google is going to deprioritize listicles in a big way. So if you've been doing listicle type of content on your site to help people make decisions, you will have to kind of get rid of that or at least change it up. But the reason I'm bringing that up right now is because I feel we've been focused so much on speed of decisions that we want customers to make that we've given up on comfort a little bit. And the number one place where that shows is making everything faster to read, icons, widgets, right? All of those things. There's nothing that beats high quality copy. When you show a call to action, you have to add more context. Like in this case, right? But you're talking about strength support, and you're adding everything. Before you get into shop now, you've added so much color to what is it that they're getting into. Also replace urgency related signals with something that drives confidence. Look at the font size on this, for example. Best deodorant on the market, even after an intense workout, I still smell fresh, right? So this is very unordinary and it works really well. So this is so much better, however, than doing a $10 sale of free shipping. This is so much better than that, and it takes the same real estate. And the final one, which is what I started with, is to design customer journeys for non-linear decision paths. The horizontal traversal of people on your site is likely very, very high, and people are moving in all directions. Nobody's following the funnel. You might have a configurator on your site that people are using, and they abandon it a lot of times, and they're going to come back for it. So how do you treat those people? There are people who will configure one product and go to the other one. How do you deal with that? And so it's important that you look at the journey a little bit more deeply. We spend a lot of time crunching data to make sure that we understand how this back and forth movement might look. But generally speaking, the takeaway that I want you to have is design so that customers can orbit on your site. They enjoy coming back again and again. They like your brand, they like your product, they like your promise, and they come back for it. Peak Design is a bags company, for example, that I really like, and I like their products. I've not even bought a bag yet, but I visit their website every now and then. For some reason, you will find me on their website. And I find that interesting that I visit the website, but I don't buy, because they've built an experience that makes me want to go back and take a look at products, toss things around, and kind of do that, right? Now they're doing wallets as well. See, I'm a repeat visitor, but they still show me a discount, and there's a timer on the discount. I guess we should have asked them to join the webinar. But anyways, my limited point here is that great websites bring you back. And great websites are not designed for that linear journey. They're minimal. They make it easy to understand information and then kind of go from there. That's everything, folks. I wanted to actually I sped up at the end because I wanted to make sure I gift some minutes back or maybe take questions at the end. If you have any questions, I'm all yours. I'm here. Um, just give me a quick moment. I'm just gonna check the Q&A as well. Yeah, I hope this was useful. I hope you had information that helped, even if it was just one idea. Whether it's the fact that you have to A/B test taking things away from your site, or the fact that you need to have another team look at your site. Uh, these are all simple ideas, but I feel they are rooted in just understanding psychology of the consumer a little bit and then going from there. Dai is asking me, yes, Dan, I apologize that I have to go through it a little faster. We will be sharing all of this information with everyone that attended, and it will be in your inbox in a couple of days. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. And I'm sorry about my speed. Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you so much for your time, everyone.